We're back. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. Getting ready for a very early, once again, and actually dark now too, Saturday morning over here. And we want to follow up on yesterday's short-term, medium-term analysis as Bitcoin did hit the extremely short-term target to the downside. Then we bounced up, hit that 10.5 region, of which we were looking for a pushback, and then the nice little tumble below 10,000. So where does it lead us up into the weekend? Well, that's what we're discussing today. And of course, going to be talking about traditional markets as well, as we do have the weekly closes in for all major markets, and of course CMEs as well, with spot price action close in the weekly on tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And my voice just cracked, so I sound like a little prepubescent boy. Hello, it's me, Krown. I actually just watched Joker last night, so feeling a little bit crazy, I suppose. Anyways, let's go take a look at the Krown chain application over here, which can be found at app.krowndj.net. And what do we see? We do see that Bitcoin dominance is pretty much steady from yesterday to today, still at that 56.5% marker. But what the overall trend has been is that Bitcoin dominance has been steadily coming down over the last, like month and a half now. We've seen this range like absolutely collapse. So do want to check in on the weekly over there on the Bitcoin dominance, and that would still suggest that we are overall seeing altcoins on this last move to the downside. We actually did see Bitcoin dominance post up for about 0.5%, but overall the trend has been down on this move down. So looking at the open interest, also something very interesting here as well. Open interest continues to come down with price action coming down, suggesting that this move is losing momentum here, which we can still look at. And while I do believe that this plays into the greater narrative that Bitcoin is very likely on the macro still bullish, I do still believe that on the long term we do have some downside, probably still below 10,000 overall over these next in this next month or two, something like that. Looking at the fear and greed index, ticking up 1 point from a 40 to a 41, but this is the first time that we've been in the fearful zone in about one and a half months, I believe, which we can go check out over here on the data tab, which is all available to you. We do see yes, this is the first time that we've seen it come back in this region since actually early July. We spent all of late July and all of August within the 80s, actually even the higher 80s as well. So coming back into parity within this region, which was the prior breakout area in the lower $9,000 region, which could come into play as well. Looking at the global funding rate, we are basically not even worth talking about, 0.02%, which is nothing. So not anything crazy right there. Oh, before we actually get into the actual analysis today, I should go over this first and foremost for anyone who happens to give a fuck, and for anyone who is interested in these sorts of things. The TA program, the options program, all programs are on sale, even the Jewel, even our partner programs. And so there's no code needed, no nothing like that. But I do want to briefly explain them so that you can make a more educated decision on whether it's going to be a good choice, a good fit for you or not. These two programs right here, the TA program and the options program, they're very long, 30 and 40 hours plus. The options program requires even more dedicated learning resources, as there's a much greater learning curve. But my main point with these two is that there's a big time investment, not only financial investment, but also a time investment. And realistically, in order to get the most out of this, you're going to need to be able to have enough free time to make the most out of that, and also reference those concepts, maybe even over a year or two as you get more and more familiar with this, with more experience. And also, of course, that's just supplemental to the actual action of studying and the actual action of, putting everything to work to begin with. So it does require a lot of effort on your own behalf. These are in no way, shape, or form a magic pill. Same thing with the Jewel, not a magic pill, and it is on sale as well. But, still going to require some risk and position management. Yes, it is a powerful tool. Yes, I do put a lot of weight on it. Yes, it's saved me, more than a few times. But I do think it's very important to say that, hey, if you are the kind of person looking at that, understand what you're getting yourself into. Watch the videos that accompany these, because they're going to give you a greater insight into who they're for and who they're not for. And then, of course, the Neophytes program over here is a much less financial commitment. It's extremely basic as well. Please do watch the video if you are interested in that one, because the most important part with that one is that if you've already been on this channel for like maybe 4 or 5 months by now, you might actually be above the content in that program, although it is laid out in a much more approachable and structured a way. Anyways, also we have Jack on board now too, who's offering up his psychological program. Strongly suggested, as I have seen him work with plenty of other people and great results actually. So that is what matters most to me. Now let's talk about some damn price actions so I can stop shilling myself. I feel awkward as always doing that, but I do want to make sure that the people who are interested in such things get a chance to. So check it out. Also check out the reviews there too, and that'll give you a good insight into what's what's up with it. Oh yes, yeah. Turn on that damn AC. Jesus Christ, man. It's too hot in here. It's like dark. It's super dark, but it's hot at the same time. Strange times over here in Eastern Europe. Anyways, okay, starting off, we'll actually start off in the very low time frames right here for Bitcoin, because I want to follow up on yesterday's price action analysis. So we saw this first move down coming into yesterday's analysis. And then we said that very likely very likely extremely short term, we were looking for a move back down to about 10,100. We actually got that tick almost to the T, not to sound arrogant or anything like that, but here it is right here, 10,100, and then we said very likely a move back up to test around 10,500-ish region, of which we did get. That was based off of the daily 89 exponential moving average right here, and also just a major long-term horizontal coming in from historical areas from our February rejection right here of this year, and also our major breakdown coming in from almost a year ago in September of 2019, before that moved down from 10,000 to, well, ultimately 4,000, but I suppose in the next couple weeks down to about 7,000. Anyways, as we are right now, I'll still essentially be having the same areas printed in here coming into the weekend. So we'll actually do think that Bitcoin probably does test downwards still. Overall, I'm very hesitant to be calling, a major move on the weekends. Typically don't see something like that. Yes, it does happen every once in a while. And in this case right here, I'd be very skeptical of any sort of up moves over the weekend, as the trend right now is very clearly to the downside. As soon as we broke back down below here just a few days ago, below that 26th of August low around 11,300. That was the big significance of that one. So driving all these lower term time frame targets. Anyways, as we are right now, the ranges on the low-term timeframes are a little bit diabolical here. I'd still say, over the weekend, I'd be looking for something like this between our low of yesterday and our high of yesterday, playing between on a 4-hour closure, 10,150 to the downside and 10,600 to the upside, which I would still be comfortable using actually right here. Either a daily close above 10.5 or a 4-hour close above 10.6, as now we've kind of, found our range highs. And the same sorts of implications with them as well. Yeah, and now, of course, we can use a little bit lower time frames too, although like I said, I would be a bit skeptical if this did move to the upside here over the weekend. Now when CMEs get trading again, well, same sort of thing, it's anyone's games, but if Bitcoin can either get a 4-hour total closure above 10,600 or a daily or 12-hour closure above 10,500, let me just double check this is still correct. Yeah, maybe a little bit above there, like 10,530 if you want to be super exact, but overall, if one of those two things were to happen, I would look for extension all the way back up here towards about 10,850, maybe 10,9 region, which is the lower end of this blue box territory, which is now going to govern the long-term upside once again. So as long as we are below that level long term, I'm looking for more downside actually happen back below 10,000 to the same targets that we had from the breakage of 11,000, somewhere in the mid 9,000s-ish region, with potential for more, of course, as well. Now, if Bitcoin were to close 12-hour and dailies back above 10,900 to 11,000, or sorry, actually, no, the range is a little bit lower than that. We need to flip this down now. Hold on. This did not save from yesterday for whatever reason. That's bizarre. But we can do something like this, make a nice little liquid zone right here. I do think that would be appropriate to be a little bit more aggressive. That's why I am flipping this one down. It's basically the same $100 region between 10,850 and 10,950. But more importantly, if Bitcoin could close a 12-hour or daily above that region, I would look for this to be one massive trappy trap, and we'd probably pop back up towards 10, or sorry, not 10, but 11.3 rather quickly, and very likely continue on with the overall long-term macro uptrend. So as always, there's an interplay between the short-term timeframes, the medium timeframes, and the high and the macro timeframes, and we do have to very deliberately separate them all as to not get super confused. And macro, when we're talking about macro, we're talking about like the monthly, monthly macro. It's like an alliteration. It's good, and the bi-monthly as well for Bitcoin. And this is, this is still an uptrend. I'm actually still bullish on this, believe it or not. On the daily, on the long term, I actually do think that Bitcoin comes down, and I do define like the daily, 2-day, 3-day as long term for Bitcoin. I do still think that Bitcoin heads somewhere right around the 200 exponential average on the daily, which is currently about 9,700-ish region, and I do think that there's potential for more if that area fails down to about 9,100-ish region. Now, just like the upside, I'd be a little bit skeptical of if Bitcoin were to start to trigger some of those over the weekend. I would actually be equally as skeptical of of any move below the bottom side of our our medium-term time frame ranges right here, which is 10,150 once again on a 4-hour delta closure. If that were to happen, we do still have that gap in this blue box territory right here, right around that 9,700-ish region, which is present on CMEs, of course. But here's the thing: if CMEs are not trading over the weekend, can you count that as a gap fill? No. But actually, could you count this as a gap fill right here? You could definitely make an argument for it. You know what? Now that I look at this right here, you could actually definitely make an argument for it. That's very interesting. And we did bounce off the 21 on the weekly as well. Very, very interesting here. Very, very interesting. I do happen to think that Bitcoin actually will test back down into that region, but this actually would suggest that it's already been filled. And who am I to argue with such things? Here's what I can say a little bit more importantly coming into the weekly to the weekly closure. So let's go back to spot right here, and remember that weekly is closing tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, kitchens, get your forks, get your spoons. It's time to clank and clack and fucking throw them around the goddamn room. Sorry. Anyways, before I was so rudely interrupted, yes, so spot price action is bouncing off the weekly 21 exponential moving average as it is right now. This is actually very, 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 very important, and the reason why I say that is because let's do some like this. Hold on. Patience. I need to really focus. Okay, there we go. So yes, anytime that Bitcoin's been in a macro uptrend or a macro downtrend, it really does seem to like to play off that yellow 21 exponential moving average on the weekly. You can go back all the way over here to 2012 to 2014, essentially. Throughout all these bullish dumps in Bitcoin land, we did actually reaccumulate on the 21 with just one stutter step in between right there. You could even argue that that one was supposed to be sold into anyways, because this was quite literally a 75% move to the downside. And on all of these bullish dumps that you do see, they're pretty aggressive moves. Like 30% is kind of par for the course on these guys, as we've seen. And to the downside works mostly the same as well. And then all the way through 2015 to 2018 right here, you can see on all these damn bullish dumps, well, same sort of thing going on right here. 21% move down right there, 26% move down right there. Do we have another one right here? We do. 34% move down right there, and 29% move down right there. You get the idea. They're all kind of within that range essentially. And the reason why this is relevant is because anytime that we've seen a dump down to that effect, down to the 21 exponential moving average, while it still maintains a positive slope and an overall uptrend, well, is that bearish or bullish? Historically speaking, that's been bullish for Bitcoin on the macro, but on the on the lower term timeframes, anything can happen there, and we are playing with big ranges now. So I do think that it's still possible for Bitcoin to get a little bit lower here. I also do happen to think that as long as Bitcoin closes this current weekly dildo above the 21 exponential moving average, the long-term macro is still very much bullish. But here's the thing: to put things in perspective with the monthly, we can come all the way back down. I mean, we can come all the way back down to the 21 exponential moving average, and this is still an uptrend. I mean, this is an uptrend as long as we're closing above, especially 8,000. But even the 10 simples all the way here at about 93, 9,400-ish region. So I do think it's very possible to have another swipe to the downside. I know that a lot of people, or at least from what I've seen on crypto Twitter, which is the best of social media venues, by the way, that a lot of people are looking to be a buyer at the gap. Usually when you get something like that, either gets front ran, which actually we might have seen right here, very, very possible, absolutely, or what's usually more likely, especially in markets like this, is that you get overran and it goes a little bit deeper than that. In this case, probably somewhere around that $9,100 base, and then bounce up from there. So I do kind of err on the side of caution right here, because if Bitcoin does get back above the critical area to the top side on the long term, I'm more or less happy to get back on the on the Bula train once again for the for the long term. Again, not to be confused with the macro, although I know that those terms can be a little bit misleading. Maybe I need to figure out some better ones for that. Anyways, okay, so I think that we got the lower term timeframes relatively well. Let's look at the reverse stochastic indicator cross. Oh, and by the way, Bally and Pigs got it on sale. I do have a link in the description below. And they do offer 7-day free trials, and it's also for all of its indicators. So if you are a fan of that, definitely go check it out. And also, there's a discount code too. Anyways, okay, so looking at the 4-hour right here, we actually do see momentum popping. All right, let's actually put back on all these major moving averages. Like to see them. I feel naked right now. Feels really good too. Anyways. My girlfriend always asks me, why are you naked all the time? It feels good. Jesus Christ. Do you need a fucking reason? Anyways, Let's see. So yes, 4-hour momentum remains the upside as long as we are closing 4-hour dildos above 10,300-ish region. Again, tight margins here. Would suggest also that if we do close a 4-hour or even a 2-hour below 10.3, very likely do retest that 10,100 or 10,150-ish region that we saw from yesterday. But what other momentum oscillators can we look at right here? Is there anything on 4-hour RSI? Not so much, no. No bullish divergence to be spoken about. No, nothing like that. Do we have any hidden divergences? Actually, no, not present here either. Maybe on the lower time frames, but that would also suggest less of a move if that were to be present. But nope, still no hidden divergences here. Also no regular divergences either. I'm very critical to call a major low or even like a short or even like a medium term reversal without bullish divergence on like at the very least a 4-hour, which we don't see present just yet. Very likely does start to form though. I mean, we did get fucking low on that RSI, so it's going to be relatively difficult to get it even lower than that. So, you know, we'll be building some, but for right now, still not present. Looking at the buy hourly, what are we showing momentum? We'll actually be turning down with any sort of a closure below 10,409, which is actually going to be closing in 1 hour and 33 minutes. So that actually could happen. And if that does happen, I look at that as actually a good catalyst for getting back down to that like 10,150-ish region. That we just kind of overlaid. Let's see, what about the hour? And also, do we see any divergences here? Yeah, we do see some hidden divergence between this point and this point, actually. Which would correlate with this high. Actually, whoa, wow. Okay, so this is actually a lot more aggressive than what I thought. That correlates with this high over here, all the way at 11,400. Obviously, this one's going to be included as well, and then this one, yeah, making a significantly higher high on RSI above the prior one, of course. So you know, what would that suggest? Probably move back down to test around that 10,150-ish region. So if I did have to call right now, I actually do think that short and medium term, we test the medium term downside region at 10,150. I don't think that we're going to break it over the weekend. Probably does get it, you know, bought up, and then once CME's open for trading tomorrow at I believe 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, then we probably do go back in. Well, at that point I'd still play ranges, but overall that's when I do think ranges can very easily be broken. And essentially, if we do break below 10,150, especially on a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo closure, I would look for the gap to officially be filled. All the way down towards, let's see exactly where this area is, 9,600, which would make sense because the gap over here on CMEs was, yeah, 9,700. So there's about $100 premium on spot price action. Yep, trading 10.6 on closure, and we close spot at like 10.5 ish. So that would all make sense right there, but still, I would be skeptical of any, of any sort of a move outside of this current range right here. This like $400 move range between 10,150 and 10.6. I guess maybe a little bit bigger than that. But you know, you get my point. So overall, you know, until CMEs start trading again, I'd just be looking for tests, you know, back up here, back down here. I wouldn't be surprised if we got the same test in like the same fucking 5-minute dildo too. You know, that's just weekend trading for Bitcoin, I suppose. But all of this is set up for the coming week. Let's also go check out what are the setups looking like in traditional markets. Remember, we spoke about Nasdaq and E-minis looking for the first time like they actually might be putting a major high this week. We hit our long-term targets on Nasdaq, not on E-mini futures for SPY though, which is of interest. But looking at this right here, do we have a potential top in place for Nasdaq futures? Yes, we do. It closed well below what I was looking for, 12,000, all the way down to the 10 simple. So we did get that test, which we spoke about. If yesterday's condition was met, which was well, I think it was just a meltdown is what it was, closing on the lows too. It's not fucking good on a Friday before a long weekend as well. But overall, you know, I do think that this one maybe test back up towards 12,000 even into next week. But overall, I do think that this is the first time that I've really felt like we potentially have a major top in this market. The reason why I say that is, first and foremost, we have a massive Darth Maul dildo right here. It's a very technical term. And also, you know, we did hit that 4-spot 236 Fibonacci extension right here. Actually, I'll drag this out so you can actually see something like this that we had in for actually a couple months prior. It was a target that, you know, really you're only going to see met in like a super fucking parabolic bullish market, which we have. And this is coming along the side of historical volatility percentile, doing what on the daily? Getting actually not that red to be fair. Actually not that red, so fair enough. maybe I hold a reservation on this one. But here's the thing, while this is all in place, this is not a confirmed reversal as it is. First and foremost, well, we don't have a downtrend, obviously, but second and foremost, the only way to get continuation on this is to trade below the low of this week's range, which was 11,142. So until we trade below there, I wouldn't be calling a continuation of this reversal. But if that were to happen, I'd target a move all the way down to about 10.4, and this would also confirm bearish divergence, 3 drives going all the way back to January of this year at this high right here, this high right here, and then once again at this high right here. So 3 drives typically does do it, and that's all alongside historical volatility percentile getting relatively hot there. So it wouldn't just drive a target down to the 21 on the weekly, somewhere around like 10.4. Very likely does bounce from there, but overall I'd probably be looking lower than that, probably somewhere towards the 55 on the weekly as well, and then come back to it. So I do think that that we play this one rather well. Not to toot our own horns here, but hit that long-term target. We said, hey, yes, this is, this market still isn't, technically not reversed just yet, but this is the time to be cautious in my opinion. And I do feel like that was justified with this move that we saw right there. Of course, I mean, that was, well, let's actually measure this one at probably 10% move. Yeah, actually a little more than that, 11 and 9%. Wow. Quite interesting indeed, my friends. Quite interesting indeed. But I also do want to be very very adamant about this as well. Regardless of whether I'm bullish or bearish on this, I actually do think that it's going to bounce up starting into next week. It's just, can the bounce hold 12,000 or not? As long as we're below 12,000, potential major reversal is in play. So that's in the cards now for the first time in a very long time. E-mini futures for SPY, what do we have here? Massive move to the downside. We did say a bounce up on open, and we did get a bounce up on open towards 3,500. Nice little $100 range or $50 range right there. And now coming down, continuing on the downtrend, getting a death cross on the hourly, so it's going to zero. No, it's a very similar chart here to NASDAQ futures, same sort of things implied. Looking at the weekly, we do have that same sort of bearish divergence between this point and this point, and that would actually still be that same sort of 3 drives on those same dates essentially too. Same sort of things here as well. If we do take out this last week's low at 33.47 and 3/4, I would target moves back down to about 32.30ish region and potentially beyond. But until that happens, could it still reaccumulate and pop back up? Yeah, could be, and I'd be overall skeptical on this one, or overall biased towards the downside as long as it's closing dailies below 3,500. And yes, I do think that into next week we probably do open this one up. But overall, how does it react to around this region right here? Also a nice round, even psychological number as well. Very, 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 very lovely how those things seem to work out sometimes. Anyways, what about Tesla? Did we see the reversal there? We saw continuation, but well, what do we see on the weekly? Same potential thing going on right here. Same sort of implications. If conditions are met, 330. Short-term target, medium-term target, 275, 272 region, something like that. Microsoft put in the same sort of top as well. 3 drives of bearish divergence on the weekly. It's almost as if all these fucking charts look the same. How crazy is that? How crazy could that be? It's almost as if you want one thing to be bullish, you need everything to be bullish, because somehow, some way, people are finding arbitrage between all these assets that trade against what? What do they all trade against? What do they all have in common? They all trade against the fucking dollar. Oh, that's interesting. Let's go take a look at Dixie and stop looking at all this bullshit over here. All right, so Dixie really starting to play out that bounce. Did close a nice weekly right here. I do think that it can still test back down towards 92 and 30 cents. But as long as we're closing weeklies above there, this is starting to look like the low. I do still think it's very possible we get an actual move towards the 200 exponential moving average on the monthly here. But you could also very easily make the case that we're seeing that low being put in right now on the weekly. I mean, realistically, it's like a $1 move away from there. So how exact do you want to be? More or less, the main message that I want to have on something like this is in a bottoming territory. Whether it has another dollar and a half move to the downside, is going to be significant, obviously, because it's probably going to force everything else up for another high actually too. But overall, as it is right now, this is the time, just like we said on NASDAQ, this is the time to more or less be cautious here. And seeing as this, pretty much everything trades against US dollar, this is going to govern a lot of the long-term macro for most major assets. And realistically, regardless of whether you put in the low, like exactly right here at how low did we get down? 91 spots, spot 75. or 91.3 or 91.4, doesn't matter to me. I'm overall looking for a big bad bounce off this area over the next few months, regardless of that, no matter which way that you cut it. The only way that I get like further bearish for like a more aggressive move to the downside, maybe even a further collapse all the way down to like $86 or $85 would be as if we close a monthly below 91.5, or if we even just take out this last prior low right here, which is much lower. So it's really not that helpful for right now. But as it looks like on the weekly, we are starting to put it, it's really trying to catch itself right here. Okay, what else do we want to look at? Because they all look the fucking same anyways. What do we want to look at? I just spoiled the surprise. Sorry about that. It's like the Grinch right now. Apologies. Anyways, let's go look at Link. Everyone loves Link, and for good reason. But should you still love Link is the real question. Is this thing still Boolah-ish in this downside despair? It looks very similar chart to Bitcoin, except more bullish. The 4 hour looks like it wants to test the upside, to be fair. Probably back up to $13, a little bit above $13 maybe. But if Bitcoin moves to the downside here, do I think that Link tests to the downside again? Yes. In the same range here is pretty much the same range on Bitcoin. About $13 the upside versus 11.66 to the downside on 4 hour closures. I'd feel comfortable with that. To the upside, if that condition is met, I'd look for another move back up towards about just a hair under $14. And to the downside, I'd look for a quick move down here, actually, probably towards this little pivot at $10.50. But for right now, this one looks pretty beat up, to be fair, as well. Daily closed how? Daily closed above the 55. Do I put a lot of weight on that? Not really. To be honest, Daily Jewel is giving you a continuation signal there, confirmed a couple days ago. So you could also argue that that's already played out. Daily Stokes also rejecting getting out of the bearish control zone. Not good there as well, and getting back in. Now, historic volatility percentile is very, 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 very warm. So I would say that we are getting very close to the epiphany of this move. Maybe if things get really crazy, Bitcoin comes down to like 9,600-ish region, we could see Link somewhere right around like high $8 or low $9 region. But overall, this one also does have a few other things in play as well. Let's see, how far does this go back? Yeah, we do have hidden bullish divergence in play, or potentially forming, as long as we're above about $7. How helpful is that? It's not helpful at all. It's just too massive of a range, and I don't trust it all that much to begin with. But this is the same sort of it's basically the same chart as Bitcoin, essentially, from an oscillator perspective. Looking at Bitcoin daily, we did call out that same Jewel continuation haughty or short signal back over here on the 1st of September, fully confirmed for the very conservative people on the 2nd of September, and then, well, 2nd of September was right here. Oh man, Mass, here, have a red dildo for your birthday. It's good. And then carrying on from there. So yes, overall, I've seen a nice little move from that. And I need to take a sip of this water, man, because I'm getting very, 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 very dry mouthed. Listen to the nice sweet sounds of my mouth hole sucking on my blue bottle's tips. Okay, so go look at the secondary chart over here too. Is there anything of interest? Yes, there is actually. We got our first open and close below the bottom side Bollinger Band for the first time since, well, should I say it? Right here, right here, right here, right here. For all major meltdowns, you pretty much never see a closure below unless it's like a major meltdown. Usually the rule is with Bollinger Bands is that as long as you're opening and closing dildos above or below the more, the top side or bottom side Bollinger Band, in this case the bottom side, you are in the process of trending. In this case right here, that would suggest that we're still in the process of trending to the downside. The bottom side Bollinger Band is currently situated at 10,420, a little bit lower than the range that I have set out on for the daily and the in the 4 hour, which is about $100 higher and $200 higher respectively. But still, same sort of implications. This one would also suggest that closing somewhere around 10,400 or 10,450 would still kind of err on the side of caution to the downside, especially during the weekend. So I would kind of look at that as still more or less a continuation sell signal here, or not sell signal, but a continuation trend signal to the downside here. Do we see anything on the MACD? Actually moving well below the zero read right there, and more importantly, gaining momentum on the histogram. But don't really have anything to add on to there. MACD is still, MACD is one of those things that like I'll reference, and I do respect it, but it's not really one of my main tools. Although sometimes you will see something on MACD that you don't see on my other tools. Does definitely happen. Not all that often, but it does happen. Anyways, let's go look at the weekly as well. The weekly probably has a nice interplay with the 20 simple. Yes, indeed it does. Obviously, because we tested the 21 exponential moving average, they're going to be about the same, Anyways, same sort of implications with this as the 21 exponential moving average. I think the 21 exponential moving average gets a little bit better, but you can see the same sorts of varies implied here as well. And as long as we are bouncing off that on your bullish dumps long term with a positive slope on it as well, those have been, well, your traditional upwards marks right here, right here, right here, and right here, and perhaps we're doing the same thing right on over here. That would also offer up this level as a major weekly pivot, meaning about 9,800 on the 20 simple, and I think about the same level on the 21 exponential moving average that we saw as well. So same sorts of things implied. Let's go take a look at Mr. Buterol. He's actually been a little bit of an easier chart to read recently too. Where are you, Mr. Buterol? Mr. Albuterol. Shout out to anyone who knows that reference as well. Okay, well, first things first, weekly getting a massive rejection from the top side Challenger band. The 20 simple on this one's actually all the way down at 280. And by the way, shouldn't say that on screen, I guess. Gonna get all the albuterols on my case. Let's see, where can I find it on my regular charts over here? I want to see it just like this. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay, so weekly, weekly does kind of look like it wants to test 10 simple. We are going to very likely see, hey, stop that. We're very likely going to see weekly Stokes turn down officially for the first time in a while from the critical zone, and that actually will inevitably turn down with any sort of a closure below 440, which is, as of current times, looking very likely between today and tomorrow, essentially, on that weekly closure. Weekly RSI is about to get kicked out of the bullish control zone. More importantly, it's losing the exponential here. I would look for it to chop around within this region, so we probably do play out a week of sideways and slightly down perhaps, but overall, do I think that we're going to go for another shattering move to the downside from here? Probably not just yet. If it does happen, it probably happens over the next few weeks rather than next week. Looking at the daily, what do we see? Daily looks a little more healthy than Bitcoin as well, to be fair, and not having that same sort of breakdown below, critical levels here. We do have a much more important level on the daily right here, coming in at this level. I'm going to redo this chart. I'm going to get rid of everything because it's a little bit too convoluted right now. We'll do something like this and make a nice little liquid zone between this area. Right underlined by the green 55 exponential moving average, and also catching this nice little pivot right there too. So this would be my major sort of trigger for big downside if that were to happen. If we were to break below this level, let's call it 369, because it's a great number, especially on a 12-hour or daily closure. Probably happens at the same time, to be fair as well. Then I look for a quick move down to about 335. Probably a bounce implied there, but an overall move potentially all the way back down to like low 300, back down around here. That would be your next long-term, your next long-term historical base. After this area fails in the lower 300s. Yeah, about I readjust that one to about 325 region instead of 330. Also in line with the cyan 89 exponential moving average as well. Daily momentum also is turning down at the same time. Not good. Rejecting the bullish control zone. Not good. Daily jewel. This was actually a much more efficacious sell signal right here. It's a lot more of an obvious one as well. This one gave you a pretty damn good one right here, or a very, very good one right here. Actually, you could even say that this one was a perfect one. Did it get the ultimate high though? Usually it does not get the ultimate high. Yeah, it does. It did not actually. In fact, this would have got you in a loss if you were to hold this one for too long and get greedy. It did tell you to sell right here at about 434, and Buterol did play a 14.5% move to the downside. So that's pretty fucking good. I mean, how greedy are you going to get? Does pop up and make a new high. So if you did hold through it, you would have lost, and then gives you a continuation sell signal. Pretty much confirmed. When was this? I'm going to guess, yeah, 2nd of September as well. So right here. So we actually haven't really seen follow through from it just yet, unless you aggressively took that one, which I do not. So fair enough. And shout out to all the people who were taking those. I know a lot of people are calling out in the Jewel program. And credit to you, man. Credit to you, and you get the glory, and that's awesome. But overall, this one does have a very shallow range to the upside as well. Where do I want to pick this one though? This one's difficult to the upside for a more medium term time frame range. If I had to, I'd put it right here. I'd shove it right here at about 420 because it's good. It's a good number, easy to remember. Although maybe not so much. But as long as you're below there and playing within this range, you know, this would be like the same range that I see on Bitcoin right now. With 11,000 kind of implying more long-term up above here, which would be akin to about 420, and to the downside right here, 375, then catalyzing moves back down to about 325, and potentially even as far as like 290 to 300 bucks. But for right now, you know, I'd kind of look for Bitcoin to set the tone and BTRL to be a more violent follower of that tone, essentially. So look at the euro dollar too. This one's still closing below our major blue box territory. It was looking iffy coming into this week, but still, blue box holds it down. Monthly trend remains for now, and it basically looks like an inverted chart of Dixie, right? Selling off on the 200 exponential average on the monthly. Probably takes a few months to grind this one out, but I'd still stick with what I've been saying. Probably does come down overall towards 114, 115 over the next, you know, half year to a year, most likely, assuming that this condition is met. If this area is taken out, especially on a weekly closure, I'd be looking for a nice move towards 121 and extension towards 125. So pretty significant there as well. Let's go back to Mr. Bitcoin and look at some ranges. I think this video has probably already been too long, and yes, indeed it has, 35 minutes. And let's see. Okay, so we'll start this one off on the 4 hour because it is a weekend, and do we move outside of the range? Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? Well, we'll look at the probabilities actually. 10.6 to the upside, 10.150 to the downside. Let's see what the magical numbers say. Show me the maths, Mr. Bally. Show me the goddamn maths. And we'll do 10.6 right here. We'll do 10.150 right here. And see what we got. Upside is favored, 36.73% versus 25.05% to the downside. Realistically, though, what's the thing that's most likely to happen here? Well, if these have a combined probability of about 60%, then 40%, the highest probability is for us to remain within that range, actually. So, you know, I'd be looking for opportunities on both sides of that range, but I'd be very skeptical of breaks of the, of that range. But hey, if it were to happen, technically speaking, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable if this happened, while CMEs were trading. But technically speaking, if we do break the top side of the range, I'd look for a quick move up to about 10.850. And if we do close above there on a 12-hour or daily, I'd be looking for this to pop back up into the 11.3 region, and this would be overall fine. And there's your low. And that could very well be your low. By the same token, 10.150 to the downside. If it does break, I'd look for a quick move down officially to fill the gap, 9,600. Although I do think you could already argue that that's happened. And if that level does fail, I'd look for a move all the way down to about 9,100-ish region. So fair enough. I think that's about it for me today. Let's do a quick look at historical volatility percentile here as well. Yeah, we are going to go into a contraction phase after this. The moving average is starting to get up and around the actual reads themselves, which is usually a good signal that we're going to play out some nice consolidation and sideways. So overall, sideways within the range is more or less par for the course here. I think that's a good place for me to leave it off. I'd like to once again wish you the best and the happiest on this nice little Saturday morning. I'll be back on tomorrow with some more video analysis. Take care, and until next time.